Gonna show you how to deploy a Next.js app onto Blossom in this video. Let's click on documentation and get started. And you can see under documentation here, there's a couple of different quick starts. I'm gonna click on the Next.js one just to see the steps. So if we're gonna use the quick start, it's actually very quick and easy, but you can use your own application too. And in that case, you would just connect to a private Git repository. But I'm gonna use a quick start just to get started quickly. First is you click on the quick start page, and then what you're gonna do is you can click configure and deploy on the Next.js app, and you can see what is done is actually it selected the cluster already because I created a cluster ahead of time for this demo. I'm gonna show you that cluster real quick. So here's the cluster. I'm running a Heroku because it's nice and cost effective, but you could use any cloud provider pretty much. Blossom supports pretty much all of them. You click on the cluster there and you can see I created also a server. So what you do is you connect your cloud provider, you create a cluster, then you add servers onto that cluster. And what I did was I actually added a server with all the roles onto one server. So I collapsed every single thing down to one server. And this is one way to save a lot of money. I do actually recommend using a separate build server just because what Blossom does is builds actually a Docker image using your source code, and it doesn't need a Docker file. It actually confers it and it detects your language and it builds the correct image. But if you need, you could also use a Docker file, but it's just kind of up to you how you want to use it. But what Blossom does is it creates a Docker image and it pushes that Docker image to registry and it pulls down that image across all your servers in your cluster. Now, if you only have one server, then that's all it really needs. But you can expand this out if you need to. Let's say you need a separate load balancer and a separate web service tier. If you need to scale it, then you can also do that. And on top of that, Blossom can actually deploy multiple applications onto the same server or cluster. So you can really really get everything dense and save a lot of money that way if you want. Or if you need kind of more like production grade server and you want everything separate and you don't want noisy neighbors essentially, then you could just create separate servers for different apps here. Okay, so it's kind of up to you. It's very flexible how you want to do it. I'm going to in fact show you that there's actually a Node.js Express app that I deployed earlier onto this cluster, and what we're going to do is just deploy another app onto the same cluster and server here. So I'm back to the quick start here. You see there's the target cluster. The name is Node.js Next.js. The URL is right here. This is basically just a repo. And I want to point out again, there is no Docker file here. One's not required. So in this sense, it's zero configuration. You just have to connect your repository up and hit the deploy button and it should figure out. But again, if you need to, you can bring your own custom Docker file and kind of customize to your heart's content. Okay, so that is that repo Docker registry. So I set up Docker Hub here, but you use ECR, you use GitHub container registry, you use a GCR Google container registry. So you can use ACR too. You use a bunch of them, okay? Environmental variables. So here I'm specifying no env production, and then database. So this Next.js app does talk to database. So I'm going to click create app here. No, I do not want to change my password there. Thanks, Google. Okay, and so that is done. And now you see this bouncy error right here. It's telling us to deploy. So click on deploy. Now that starts the deploy process. Now it takes some time to actually build the Next.js app. So it's but I'm going to show you first what these logs are about. First, I clicked on the main log. So that main log is like the overall log. It tells you kind of what it's doing across your fleet of servers. And since we only have one server, you only see one server log down here. But it actually only builds your image on one server, and then it pushes that image up to your Docker registry. Then across your fleet of servers has to pull down the image, and then it's going to continue on. And it depends. If you have load balancer, then it's going to target the right server and then run the right configurations on those servers. But this is going to take some time to build. And I'm just going to scroll up the top so you can kind of see a little bit here. It's clone the repo repository right here. It's starting the build process. And you kind of scroll down here, and now it's kind of doing the yarn install, okay? Let's go back to parent app log. While we're waiting this to build, I'm going to show you a couple things, and then we'll probably pause the video so you don't have to wait for this whole thing to deploy. But we're in the dashboard right now. And then here's the Git repo, and this is all kind of pre-configured by the quick start, but you can go in here and configure private repositories you want. You can select different providers to connect to, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, and then you specify different branches and subfolders, Docker registries. So this is the Docker registry we're going to push the image to. So you can see you can connect to actually multiple registries if you want, and then it's going to log into all of them, and then it's going to push to only kind of the one you specify up here. Databases. NextJS, this application does have a database. I've already kind of created a database and linked to it. Now, the cool thing is when you link to a database, it will kind of create this database URL variable for you. All right, and then you can see in the environment here, see here's the Node.js one that we set up in the quick start. And then here's the linked environmental variable here. Activity is just the deploy log, essentially, what activity is happening on the app. And then app logs, that's really cool. There's no processes yet, but once this is app deployed, then actually that shows a live stream. Essentially, it's like a tail F of your app logs, which is very useful for debugging. That's like my go-to when I need to debug the app, okay? So this is gonna take some time to build and deploy. So I'm gonna pause the video so y'all don't have to wait. All right, so it finished deploying. It took some time. I want to say that you could actually use a larger server if you want to. If you want, I just use a kind of cheapo server here. If you want faster build times, because NextJS apps, it looks like it actually takes a decent amount of resources to build. Anyway, so you can see it went through the build phase here, and then pushed the image up. You can see at the very end here. Back to the parent log, and then it went through release phase. In the release phase, you can see basically it created the database and then it seeded the database. And I have some scripts that kind of do that in this repository. I should actually probably look at. Let's see, proc file. And then you can see yarn db setup. So that means it's under package JSON right here. And db setup right here is called node script cdb or setup db, which is probably called seed also. So let's go scripts here. Then you can go cdb. Or let's see, setup DB. All right, so setting up DB, then eventually it's gonna seed the DB here too. Okay, so it's gonna go seed the DB, and then there's the Prism script, and then it's basically jokes database, is random jokes. Okay, so random dad jokes. So that's what it did there. It basically did the release, then the deploy. So deploy, what it does is it pulls the image down across the fleet of servers, which is only one in this case again. Then it uses Docker Compose up. So if you understand Docker Compose up, then it's gonna be very simple for you to understand. Docker Compose is very straightforward and pretty simple to understand. Then it creates a managed domain. So a managed domain is just like a short URL that is gonna make your app available kind of immediately. Then it syncs essentially the cluster's load balancer tier. And again, I've collapsed every single down. So everything is gonna be on one server. So that's what happened there. So you click on dashboard here, now you click on this view app button, and that's gonna show you the app. And here's the app that we just deployed. And you can see there's some documentation pages here, but here's the jokes. Here's all the jokes, and here's all the jokes that were seeded in that database here. So this is all talking database, is all working. Let's see what else I want to show you. Maybe app logs. App logs is my go-to whenever I'm debugging something. Basically, this is just streaming your app logs back to the UI here. So you can see it as you kind of visit pages right here. You just visit here, and then you can see it. There's something about there, some object anyway. But yeah, this is the app log, okay? So that's where you should go to see the app logs. Okay, and dashboard, environmental variables, I kind of covered that, I think. Anyway, so that's all it kind of really takes to deploy a NextJS app onto Blossom. And hopefully that was helpful. Thanks.